All right, everyone, what is going on? So we are in Deload week. So just on the fourth week of the current kind of master purchase program we were doing. Again, for those of you that were watching, it was a very high volume from an accessory standpoint. From a compound lift standpoint, stayed very sub-maximal. I did take a 3-rep max from a trap bar standpoint this past weekend as kind of like my last lift of that block, main lift. 385 for 380, 381 for 3, which I was fine with. I really have not pushed that in some time. So we'll kind of use that as an estimated 3-rep or 3 reps to get an estimated 1RM and kind of use that from a program standpoint moving forward. But again, very high volume from an accessory standpoint. Definitely feel like I've put a bit more on and whatnot, but now we're in deload week. So generally from a deload standpoint, I'd say as a general rule of thumb for most people, it's going to be a 3-week on, 1 week off. But I don't mean like 1 week off, not doing anything, just a 1 week of a deload. So you're going to cut the volume pretty consistently. So you're maybe only going to do like 70%, maybe at most, of the volume you were doing previously. And I think the perfect example is you just cut the sets in half. So, if I'm doing 3 rounds of some accessories, I'm doing 2 rounds now. If I have, 5 sets of, we'll just say 3 from a main lift, I'm going to maybe drop down to 2 or 3 sets of 3. So very just lower intensity, allowing the body to recover from those previous weeks of loading. I'll talk a little bit more as we go through this here. But again, today's going to be for deloads. I typically just like to do a lot of some complex work. I will do some compound stuff at compound lift stuff at sub-maximal intensity throughout the week, but it is very circuit-based. I am starting to pick up some on-feet running volume, so some very short yardage acceleration work, higher volume tempo runs, so kind of starting to get that back into my routine as well. So kind of find ways to mix that in with the loading parameters we're going for. But today's just going to be essentially an upper body circuit, do some kettlebell overhead presses, some pull-ups, some push-ups. It's going to be, I can't remember what else I have written down, but it's going to be very much just kind of keeping a good pace, not redlining, almost like your kind of GPP type stuff to a degree. I still enjoy loading during these weeks, but it's at a very sub-maximal effort to allow for recovery from the previous week. So we're just going to get right into it here. All right, got 15 there. Now I'll take about 30 seconds rest in between on these. Again, just keeping a good enough pace, but not totally redlining it. So probably go some pull-ups after this, then some push-ups, probably some inverted rows, so kind of push-pull in different directions, and then probably just some kind of delt or bicep work more than anything. So move on to pull-ups now. All right, so first round's done. kettlebell presses, pull-ups, push-ups. I went fists today just because wrist did not feel great getting in this back position. Inverted rows, towel curls, triceps. So going back to topic of deload weeks, what I will say is I don't think everyone needs a deload week every fourth week. So give you for example, there might be times where, say, if a guy's coming off season, give him like a 2-week GPP period, and then follow into a volume phase. So let's just say that's 6 weeks total. I might really push it for 5 weeks, and then that 6th week is going to be the deload. Now, the reason being is and you're staying at submaximal loads on that standpoint, so you can kind of you can push it a little bit longer. You can even also take a strength block for that long. So some cases where you might go 5 weeks of continuous loading in a quote unquote max strength phase, and that 6th week is going to be the deload. But general rule of thumb from an athletic standpoint, I found, is I usually just go three progressive weeks of loading and then 1 week for a deload. It just seems to be a little bit better for some of these athletes to tolerate from now, because again, at the same time, they have other stressors. They're potentially starting some sport work. They have running. They might have, other stressors from a school and life standpoint. So, the cases where it might be, hey, I'm going 5 weeks consecutive loading from a strength phase and then 6-week deload might be more from a weightlifter standpoint. Boy, that's all that they're doing. But that again is really specific to each individual. But bottom line is you do need deloads throughout a program more than anything. If not, you are just going to keep kind of burying yourself further down the hole and not being able to get out of it and recover from it. And this could be whether we're talking about CrossFit, Olympic lifting, training from a sports standpoint. You have to have it mixed in there at some standpoint from a lifting standpoint. You still have to lift though, or do something that's maybe more GPP type, whether it's circuit work, complex work, even just going for walks more frequently throughout the week. There's a lot of different things you can do from that standpoint. All right, end of today's workout. So again, as you saw, it's a quick one, deload week, just 3 rounds, about 6 exercises, around 8 to 15 reps, depending on the exercise per round, 30-second rest in between each exercise, and about 1.5 to 2 minutes in between each round, just to kind of get the heart rate in a good spot, allow it to recover. We're not redlining it. So again, another great option for deload weeks. Drop your volume significantly. Work maybe, main lifts 70, no more than 75%. Work on some small things, whether it's some areas that you're weak in or not. And it's really about just preparing yourself for the next block more than anything.